Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to thank the Metropolitan Golf Association and Jay Matola for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the National Club Association to you today, this morning. The Metropolitan Golf Association has so many great golf clubs under its umbrella, and some of my favorites. And when I think about the Golf Association of Philadelphia that I'm involved with, and the MGA, and you take about a radius of about 100 miles from where we're seated today, probably the greatest concentration of golf clubs anywhere in the world. So it's a pleasure to be here. We have our slide there. There's two taglines, advocate for clubs and answers for club leaders. And when Jay asked me if I would like to speak here today, I was thrilled. Usually we have a representative from the National Club Association, either Sue Eggerson or Brad Steele. Brad, as you know, is our Vice President of Government Relations. He's an attorney. He's on Capitol Hill. My presentation will be a lot different, a lot different. I don't have the depth and command of every court case out there and every legislative district out there. What I'm going to try to offer to you is my perception of the club industry in today's environment and the role of the National Club Association, being both a past president of a private club, the Union League of Philadelphia, and also on the board here at the NCAA for a long time. And I know that a number of your clubs may be public members, but most of the private clubs of the MGA. I think the information I provide is relevant whether you're a private club or whether you're a public club. Let me give you I'll bore you with about a minute of background, but there's a purpose to this. The Union League of Philadelphia is 150 years old this year. So we're celebrating our sesquicentennial celebration. It's a club, it's a city club, but we have an amorphous golf club inside of it. As a city club, there's 3,300 members. We have 200 employees, and we have a $30 million operating budget. And it was this year, the Platinum Club of America has a tri-annual survey. Probably a number of you participate in it. It was voted the #1 city club in the United States, so I'm very proud of that. I was glad I could be a part of that process. In my 11 years on the board, and my presidency ended in 2010, but in my 11 years on the board at the Union League, I served in every unpaid position I could possibly find. Okay? And this is my 10th year on the National Club Association, also every possible unpaid position I could find. And just one more addition, our CPA firm that I run does not have any clubs as clients, nor do we derive $1 from the club industry. So you might say, well, why are you here? Well, my livelihood is not dependent upon how well the club industry does. But for the general managers here, your livelihood and your successes depend upon that industry. And that industry, I have great love for it, and it concerns me greatly where things are headed and the dangers that we face. So I'm going to try to share with you my perspective on that. Now, I have a number of general managers that are friends through NCAA. Jeff McFadden, who's at the Union League of Philadelphia, a number of you may know Jeff, and Christine Puller, who's at Murray Golf Club. They're all excellent. I have a lot of respect for GMs. You are the drivers and the COOs of those clubs. So the information I share with you is important, I think. And also the volunteer leaderships that's here today, the club presidents, the board members. I was in that capacity. I know what that's like, and I know the challenges you face, so I'll try to share my perspective on that also. Now, the NCAA, the NCAA, we are the legislative advocate. I'll address that issue first before we get to the answer for club leaders. We're the legislative advocate in Washington. We're actually on Capitol Hill, meeting with representatives from the House, meeting with senators, meeting with their staff, trying to influence legislation that positively affects clubs, and if it's adverse to clubs, we're fighting against it. So we're the single voice, and I'll keep saying that because we're the only ones. We're the trade association for private clubs throughout the United States. There's about 4,000 private clubs, and about 400 of them are members of NCAA. So we're doing what we can to support the industry. Private clubs, 501c7s, which I'm sure a lot of you are here today, came about and they have a protection under the First Amendment to our country's Constitution, the right to assemble peacefully. And that's a sacred right, to be a right of association, who we want to join our club, who's involved in a club. There's a great dislike for private clubs out there. You may not think that that's the case. You might think, well, private club's wonderful. The Canoe Brook looks like a great club. I spoke with Al this morning. But there's a lot of people that don't like private clubs. And the feeling, if you look back to the history of NCAA, our genesis was in 1961 when Congress passed a bill, a law, that charged 20% excise tax on dues and initiation fees. Think what that would do to your club today if there was a 20% added tax on top of what you're charging your members. How many members would you drop out? We all have those fringe members on the edge. They're about ready to go. If you're always concerned, should we raise dues this year? Well, think about an excise tax being dropped on top of it. Well, that was 1961. NCAA didn't exist. NCAA was formed. We went to Capitol Hill. They testified in Capitol Hill. In those days you could. That legislation was eventually repealed in 1965. That could be the case today. When you look at a consideration of who can afford to pay for things, members of private clubs, it would be a great target for us. The NCAA has fought those battles both on a federal level, state and local level over the past half century. If you look at 9 years ago, 2003, membership issues called into question nationally. That's been somewhat mitigated by events that happened this past August, but once again, national spotlight. NCAA was there. Sue Wegerson was quoted in Golf Week and a number of other golf magazines supporting private club policies. 2006, in your own backyard, village of North Hills, a very overzealous mayor tried to take over one of the private clubs, Deepdale Golf Club. NCAA was there. In fact, we had a meeting at Westchester Country Club, a board meeting for NCAA Westchester. Bob James hosted us up there, and we had the PR people who were representing Deepdale at the time and the law firm as to what happened. Now, legislation eventually got passed in New York to prevent that from happening, but there's a lot of states that's still vulnerable in. You know, the right of eminent domain was being misused there, as it was possibly in the Kelo case in Connecticut a few years earlier. So there's been this continual trend against clubs. The industry itself, can you hear me okay? The industry itself, the private club industry is a contracting industry. Last year about 80 clubs went out of business. I drive through Philadelphia and there's some great William Flynn designed golf courses, and William Flynn's one of my favorite designers, and I see signs at the entrance that says memberships available. That's scary, because you know they're in desperate shape. When you start advertising, as a private club, first of all, you shouldn't be advertising for memberships, and when you see memberships available, you know that they're on the financial brink of maybe taking the turn down. We think that probably a third of the private clubs out there are in that type of shape. So this industry, while your club may be doing well today, as a whole, I have great concerns. Let's take a look at the current outlook in Washington, D.C. Now, if Brad were here, he would go through every one of these congressional races in the presidential race. I can't do that. I'm not capable of doing that. But I will tell you that the climate in Washington, I think you know this if you're a business person, it's somewhat anti-business. It's shackled with regulation. We're looking at increased burdens for those of us that do have businesses, and we're looking at burdens in the area of taxation. Now, I have this, the second line up there talks about January 1st, 2013. I have a couple more slides I'm going to put up here. It's called the fiscal cliff, the tax cliff, and we'll look at that. This is a chart of marginal tax rates, 2012, and these are the ranges of income, and then what they're going to be January 1, 2013, unless Congress does something to either extend the current tax position or make changes. So as you can see, there is every tax bracket goes up. There's no unprotected tax bracket here. Everyone will pay more taxes, income taxes. These are income taxes, okay? Big range. Take that a step further. There's a 2% Social Security holiday that was put into effect 2 years ago, and it reduced the withholding of Social Security taxes from all wage earners. Your employees that work in your club, for the general managers, they're all going to, on January 1, have a reduced paycheck, because that 2% holiday, which, by the way, I don't agree with, Social Security, if you've read the trustees report for the last several years, which I have because I publish in the retirement area, it says that Social Security is unsustainable in its current form. Unsustainable. So now we give a holiday for 2 years, and we take money to pay for other things. Not a good idea, but in any event, that's going to now come out of your employee's paycheck. They're going to have less income. Every tax bracket, as you just saw, is going to increase 3 to 5%. So I would alert your payroll departments, the GMs there, and your HR departments that on January 15th, when that first paycheck comes out to your employees, they're going to come back and say, where did my money go? Well, it went back to additional taxes, and the 2% is going away. I don't see that being extended any further. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, puts additional taxes on investment income and earned wages if your incomes are over those limits. That probably affects most of your club members. I would think in this area, metropolitan area of New York, probably most of your members are affected. That's household incomes, by the way. Tax on long-term capital gains rates, which are now 0 and 15%, are going to go to 10 to 20. And dividend income, which a lot of our retired members live off of dividend income, has been very favorably taxed at 0 and 15%. That's going to return to ordinary income. The bottom line is the disposable income of your employees, the disposable income of your members is all going to be reduced. Now, how does NCAA get involved? Well, Brad's on Capitol Hill trying to, whatever they can do to lobby to reduce these rates or keep them from being, or extend these rates, the current rates, or fight against rates being increased. He's doing that on a regular basis. Some recent NCAA accomplishments on behalf of clubs. There's 4 things that we have here. I put in parentheses the source of where the issues were. The H-2B visa program. I'm not sure how many clubs in the Golf Association use H-2B, but this is very important for a lot of clubs that are seasonal or resort clubs. The DOL was going to increase the minimum wage, amongst other onerous things, by $4.50 an hour. A direct impact for GMs. We lobbied against that. That has now been suspended at this point, but look for it to come back again. It's still in play. There's a number of the National Labor Relations Board. I believe that about 13% of your clubs have unions in them. The NLRB would like to make them all 100% unionized. We've been fighting that. The poster rule, the quickie election rule, the gag rule have all been suspended. They're still in play because they're in the courts now, but they're not being implemented. NCAA lobbied on behalf of each one of these to stop them, suspend them, get them repealed, or whatever the case might be. And then the 1099 reporting requirements of the healthcare bill, which takes effect January 1, 2014. There's still issues they're fighting against for that for the club industry. So a number of things that we are doing. Once again, it's a single voice in Washington. Okay. For the club leaders out there, for the voluntary leadership, club presidents and board members that are here today, NCAA provides a lot of governance issues and a lot of governance roles. And one of the things that they provide is legal expertise. And when I was president of the Union League, we had, as I said, we had 3,300 members, 200 employees. Every day I was president, I kept thinking to myself, we've got 35 potential lawsuits, 3,500 potential lawsuits every day I walk in as president. Something can go wrong. So we had 2 members during my tenure, 2 members that, one for a behavior issue and one for an issue that was in the papers that we weren't happy with what was going on, we wanted to get rid of. And I'm sure that your memberships are absolutely perfect. You don't have any members you wouldn't want to get rid of. They're all wonderful people. So how do we proceed? Well, the first thing we could do is we could pick up our phone and call our law firm in Philadelphia. It's a big law firm, expensive law firm, good law firm. And they probably say, we'll look into it. Well, I know that they don't handle all club matters. Or they handle corporate matters, and they're running a dozen different directions. So we called the NCAA, as any NCAA member can, spoke with Brad. He gave us guidance. This is how you give due process to a member that you want to get rid of. Here's the process. We followed it, gave the due process. The members are now gone. There was no lawsuit. The last thing as a club president or a club officer I want to do is prep for a deposition on a lawsuit being filed by one of our members or ex-members against the club. This is a very inexpensive way. It's part of your dues. It's not an additional cost. And we give legal guidance, not legal advice. You may have to consult an attorney, but we get you in the right direction so you don't go in the wrong direction, so you don't end up with a lawsuit. To me, that was an invaluable resource. Next to the D&O insurance premium, make sure it was paid, I made sure we were a member of NCAA. So I want you to know how important that is. In summary, for those members that are here today that are members of NCAA, I thank you for your continued support. For those clubs that are here today that are not members of NCAA, I encourage you to join our ranks to help protect our industry, to strengthen our voice so that that single voice becomes one strong voice in Washington, D.C. Thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions and answers if you have any.
Jack, do you see any changes taking place in Congress working collectively with the executive branch to get some of these problems addressed after the election, either way?
Well, I have to believe there has to be something done tax-wise. When you look at $500 billion of taxes that become effective January 1, with a very slow recovery of the economy, delicate balance, I would have to believe somebody does something. Once again, there's a lot of things up in the air through November 6th, and we may have a little clearer direction once that's over. Any other questions? Or I can refer them to Brad if you don't. We could get him on the speaker. Any other questions? Thank you once again for your opportunity to speak. Thank you.